Hello, everybody. We're at the midpoint in the class, the fourth week in an 8-week class. So let's roll forward, and things are going to get interesting. Let me start with the reading assignment, and that would be chapter 5. Although you're going to want to review the 3 theories of humor in chapter 1, and you'll see where he mentions the superiority theory. Guess what? He tells you right there when he explains that theory that he's going to use it to discuss ethnic humor. Toward the end of this chapter, one of the other theories of humor come into play. You'll see it if you just go back and review the 3 theories of humor. Okay, but before you read it, hop on over to the modules page, go down to our supplemental readings, read the tips on chapter 5. This is important because a lot of the work you do in this class from now on is going to draw partly from chapter 1 and in a big way, at least for the next couple of weeks, on chapter 5. So read through this, and he mentions 2 early sections of the chapter, which I want you to focus on. And you'll see that I've highlighted a few things, which you can feel free to do. And this is kind of the key reason people laugh at ethnic jokes, and partly because they're cultural insiders. In other words, they're members of a society or a community within a society. And as you know from earlier in the class, common sense is specific to a community, to a culture, to a society. And you have to know the logical conclusion to laugh at the illogical conclusion that is the punchline. So key stuff right there. And he gives some great examples here as he starts to explain it in detail. So focus on these 2 sections, but do read the rest of the chapter. And read that reading guide first. You'll save yourself a lot of time that you would otherwise spend rereading parts of the chapter. Okay, let's go to assignments. Here's where things get interesting. There's the class discussion, there are the reading questions. There's a draft of a major assignment due a week from this Monday. In other words, next Monday. Be worth 50 points. And this is pretty short right here because it's a draft of a major assignment, and I'll get to that assignment in a minute, but this should cover 60% of that assignment. The assignment's due the 20th, but the actual draft, of course, is due next Monday on the 13th. And you'll get the draft back with my responses and recommendations and reactions. So keep that in mind. Let's go to the assignment. Now I'll go into this a bit more deeply on our Thursday screencast. But if you just look at the central question, which you're going to want to answer in your introduction, your first paragraph probably, very likely. And you're going to focus on one comedian. And it would be a one-off. It would be a comedy special, or in the case of Paul Rodriguez, that Latin Kings of Comedy special, just his segment, for instance. One comedian. And you're going to rely on the jokes. And also, importantly, the context of the audience, the situation, the background, how he or she has implicitly got the audience's permission to tell ethnic jokes. And you're going to explain how that comedian's doing that using Critchley. And last week's discussion and this week's discussion and reading questions are going to help point you in that direction. And of course, where we all got started about how humor is an illogical argument. A joke is an illogical argument, but it's got all the features of an argument. Use Weston. And types of deductions, you've got what? Just a few I asked you to look at: modus ponens, modus tollens, a hypothetical syllogism, for instance. A lot of the jokes are modus ponens. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And there are a few formal elements here you don't need to look at right away, because that draft I just showed you is just 60% cover these first three instructions really well, which means you're going to want to answer the big question here in your introduction. Okay? Now, if you have any questions whatsoever about this assignment, about the draft especially, go to the class chat room. I'd love to hear your questions, and these are questions that your classmates were thinking of answering possibly, and they might want to see my answer as well as your question. Anyway, let's get the week started, and I would say the best place to start is right here.